So, what do you actually do in those first few moments after crime happens? It's a question you hope you never have to deal with, but you know what? Knowing the answer is absolutely crucial. Today, we're going to break down the very first steps in India's criminal justice system right from the beginning.
Just imagine this for a second. An argument on the street blows up and it suddenly gets violent. You're caught in the middle and you get hurt. You're confused, you're in pain, and in the middle of all that chaos, one huge question pops into your head. What do I do now? Where do I even start? To make this real, let's follow the story of a man named Sudish. He gets into an argument with another guy, Mukesh, and things get out of hand. Mukesh physically assaults him, and it's a serious attack. Sudish loses some teeth, he gets a really painful ear injury. Right now, he's a victim. He's hurt, he's scared, and he has no idea what to do. His journey is going to be our map through this whole process. Okay, so before Sudhish can do anything, he needs to figure out if what happened to him is, legally speaking, a crime. Because, you see, not every bad thing that happens is a crime, and it's so important to know when you should and shouldn't get the police involved.
So, what exactly is a crime? Well, it's any act that's forbidden by the country's criminal code, which in India is now the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, or BNS. The really big idea here is that a crime isn't just seen as an offense against one person. It's considered a threat to all of us, to society itself. And that's why it's the government, the state, that takes the lead on the case, not just the victim.
All right, let's put this to the test. Let's say your boss hasn't paid you in 3 months. Is that a crime? Well, it's definitely wrong, no doubt about it, but this usually falls under labor law, not criminal law. You'd go to the labor department to sort it out, not the police station. The path to getting what you're owed is totally different.
Okay, how about this scenario? You see a man hit his wife while they're fighting on their balcony. Is that a crime? Yep, absolutely. Domestic violence is a criminal offense, period. That is something that you can and should report to the police. See the difference? It's key.
To really get this, let's think about it like a game of cricket. In any sport, you've got 2 kinds of rules, right? You have the rules about how to play the game, what's a 4, what's a 6, what's an out. And then you have the rules for the umpire on how to enforce everything. Law is kind of the same. And that brings us to 2 main types of law. On one hand, you have substantive law. Think of the BNSA. This law defines what's right and what's wrong, what's a crime and what isn't. It's the what. On the other hand, you have procedural law, like the Bharatiya Nagarik Sureksha Sanhita, or BNSS. This is the how. It's the rule book that tells everyone, you, the police, exactly how to report a crime and how an investigation is supposed to work.
Okay, so even within criminal law, it gets a little more specific. The path you take right at the beginning really depends on how serious the crime is. And this brings us to another super important idea, the difference between cognizable and non-cognizable offenses. Here's the breakdown. Cognizable offenses are the really serious ones. We're talking murder, theft, grievous hurt. With these, the police can arrest a suspect without a warrant, and they can start investigating right away. This is when they file what's called a First Information Report, or an FIR. Then you have non-cognizable offenses. These are less serious things, like a simple assault. In these cases, the police actually need an order from a judge, a magistrate, before they can do anything. And they file a non-cognizable report, or an NCR. So let's bring this all back to Sadish. The assault on him, which caused those pretty serious injuries, is classified as grievous hurt under the BNS. And that means it is a cognizable offense. This is a big deal because it means he has the right to file an FIR, and the police have the power to jump into action immediately.
So armed with this knowledge, Sudish, and he smartly brings a paralegal with him for support, heads to the police station. This is where the rubber meets the road. We're getting into the practical, step-by-step part of how this actually gets done. All right, so filing an FIR. First, you go to the police station, ideally the one that has jurisdiction over where the crime happened. Then you tell them exactly what happened, every detail. You can do this orally or give it to them in writing. For a cognizable offense, the officer has to register an FIR. Now, they might do a quick preliminary check first, which can take up to 14 days. But once that FIR is filed, and this part is so important, you are legally entitled to get a copy of it for free. And listen, this isn't just a suggestion. It's the law. Section 173 of the BNSS specifically says they have to give you a free copy of the FIR. This is not a favor they're doing for you, it is your right. Honestly, just knowing this one little detail can be incredibly empowering when you're in that situation. But okay, let's talk about the big fear. What if the police just say no? It happens. But you have options, so don't panic. You've got a playbook. First, you can politely but firmly remind them of your right. If that doesn't work, you can go over their head to a senior officer, like the superintendent of police. You can even send a written complaint by registered post. And if all else fails, you can actually bypass the police entirely and file a private complaint directly with a magistrate.
All right, success. Sudisha's FIR is filed. The first major hurdle is cleared. So what happens now? Well, this is when the case officially moves into the next stage, the police investigation.
The investigation kicks into high gear. This means police start collecting all the physical evidence they can find. Things like CCTV footage, Sudisha's medical reports, maybe some photos. They'll also go out and talk to anyone who might have seen the assault to get witness statements. And of course, they will record a statement from the accused, Mukesh, making sure to follow all the legal rules.
Now, you have to know, this process isn't instant. It's not like on TV where it's solved in an hour. Generally, the police have a time limit of about 90 days to wrap up their investigation and file their final report. It's just good to have a realistic idea of the timeline.
So at the end of all this work, after those 90 days, the police have a decision to make. They'll file one of two documents with the magistrate. If they found enough evidence to move forward, they file a charges sheet. That basically recommends the case should go to trial. If they don't think there's enough evidence, they file a closure report. Whew, we have been on quite a journey with Sudish, haven't we? From victim to complainant, we've covered a ton of ground. So let's just take a breath and boil this all down to the absolute must-know rights you need to remember. So, what are the most crucial takeaways here? Number 1, you have the right to file an FIR for any serious cognizable crime. Number 2, the police must give you a copy for free. 3, you have clear options if they refuse to file it. And finally, and this might be the most important, you don't have to go through this alone. Getting help from a friend or a paralegal, just like Sudish did, can make all the difference in the world. Look, knowing how to get the ball rolling, how to get your case started, that is a huge, huge first step. But it is just the first step. If a charge sheet gets filed and the case actually proceeds, what happens then? What goes on inside the courtroom? Well, that's a whole other journey.